Thank you again for joining us for Midnight Pumpkin, our fall 2020 stitch along with me, your stitching host, Laura Bosma, Pretty Penny Precuts, and our ultimate host, the Southeastern Quilt and Textile Museum. We're on step 2, which is preparing your background shape, and we're going to press, cut, and then I do highly recommend fray block, and I'll talk about each of those. This is the finished project in its oval form. Again, Midnight Pumpkin. Inside your kit, you received a piece of large freezer paper with, let's see if I can get us in screen here, the oval background shape. Again, Midnight Pumpkin, this is your background. This is one that I use often. So I have hand-drawn or traced actually your freezer paper with the oval shape. And whenever you do any kind of tracing, whether it's with fusible or freezer paper, when you're working with applique or wool applique, remember this little ditty. The first line that you draw, let's get a finger on it if it'll let me, is the last line you cut. So resist the temptation to perfectly cut out your oval yet. Don't do it yet. If you find, and you will find, that this, you can't even see the background piece under this, you can rough cut it, which means, you know, come out here about a ½ an inch, 3/4 of an inch, an inch away. But there's a reason I don't want you to cut on the line just yet. So again, this, your background shape, will be pressed onto your background wool. Make sure your wool is flat. If that means that you need to press it a little bit and let it come back up to room temperature, definitely do that. Oftentimes I get asked, what's the right side and what's the wrong side? Well, let's go back to that funny thing quilters say. You've paid for both sides. With a yarn dyed woven, and this has been over dyed, the weave is the same on the front and the back. You just need to look it over. There are dark spots and lighter portions on a hand dyed wool. Which side do you like better? Select that one as your right side in this particular case. Now, because I want to get it all on screen and I don't want to chop into a piece of that valuable wool just yet, I'm going to do it in miniature. So again, our steps are that we are going to press, then cut, and then fray block. So I need you to put the shiny side, this is the shiny side, it's also slicker. This is the matte side, this is the side you would write on if you needed to. You're going to put the shiny side against what you think is, it doesn't matter since this is an asymmetrical shape, either your right side or your wrong side of your motif of your wool, or in this case I'm actually using a piece of flannel that is the same hand dyed almost. You're going to press that. So you're going to place that on there, and then you're going to use a dry iron. Anytime you're pressing on paper, whether it's parchment paper or freezer paper, I need you to be using a dry iron. So you're going to press that, you know, maybe 5-7 seconds over each area until it's down firm. But even though it's down firm, I promise it's temporary. So let that cool once you have ironed it, and then you're ready to cut. So I'm going to go again, I'm cutting in miniature here. The reason I didn't want you to cut out on the oval yet is, especially when you're working with a curved shape like an oval or a circle, if you can leave it in its rectangular form first before you cut it, including the paper, you're going to get a much neater cut. So then I just need you to hold your scissors perpendicular. So here's my surface, which is horizontal. Here are my scissors, which are vertical. I need you to hold the scissors as perpendicular to the edge of what you're cutting as you possibly can. And then I just cut right around the edge of the marker that I've got going. You know, if I trim a little bit of the black off, I'm okay with that. Again, this is a handmade project. It's probably going to have, you know, a few things that are not perfectly cut, and you know what? That's okay. I'm really okay with that. That's what makes a handmade project so unique is that no matter how many times you do it, no two are going to be the same because, you know, there was some human interaction with the materials, and I'm good with that. So I've gone all the way around and I've cut away. So this becomes my waist. Here's my matte side. Here's the good side. Now I'm going to gently peel. So, you know, try it in one area and see if you can't get it to lift away. If it's behaving a little stubborn, then get some fingernails in there. I try to keep these shapes that I make intact because even though we've cut it, you know, this is our first cut when it's still a rectangle. It's going to be the best cut we get out of it. But this can be reused even though it has gained some fuzz on the shiny side. You should be able to press this down about probably 3-4 more times onto something, even though it looks like that, and get that shape again. Now I noticed on the flannel, I actually want to put it on the shiny side against my wrong side because it definitely picked up some fur, so this will become my right side. Now it may look a little bit distorted, but this is not a problem even with your other. I'm going to ask you to go back and then just simply kind of iron that flat. Just iron it. You could steam press it at this phase, but I think I just dry iron it and then let it come back up to room temperature before you do too much with it. Once it's cooled, then if you have access to, this is my favorite product. This is June Taylor's Fray Block. I don't include it. It's too expensive for me to provide, and I wouldn't want to risk it being punctured in the mail, but you can find this at your big box stores, and oftentimes with a couple of the big box stores you could use a coupon, so do look for it. I prefer it over the other brand that might be a little bit more popular. This one is thinner. I like the fact that it has the tube portion is already open. I do include in your kit, whether you bought the Notions kit or not, 2 fact sheets that are Notion sheets that I've written about. One is about this Light Steam Machine 2 fusible we're going to use. The other is about this Fray Block. And I tell you, please don't cut it, open it up using this puncture point. It's too big. You'll just follow my directions and just stick it one time with a straight pin, and I mean one time barely, and that is all you need. But the beauty of this is we'll simply go around the perimeter, and yes, it's going to look wet for a bit. Let that again air dry back, and it will go completely away. The hand, that's a fabric term, which means it doesn't get too stiff or crackly. The hand of the fabric, I think, is a little bit better with the Fray Block product. The other thing I have noticed with Fray Block is it won't haze. The other product, I think, on dark fabrics will haze to kind of a hazy white, and that's not something I want on my dark product. So there was a little bit of Notion information for you. Once you've done those 3 steps, and that again was, we're going to press the freezer paper on, cut out the shape, and then Fray Block, you're done. If you opted to leave your background as a rectangle, or maybe it'll turn into a square when you finish with the project, not a problem. Fray Block what you get as is instead, even though you didn't cut it into a shape. See ya in step 3. Again, Laura Bosma, Pretty Penny Precuts with your Southeastern Quilt and Textile Museum in Carrollton, Georgia.